what if the physical world you're experiencing right now, like the chair you're sitting in, the ground beneath your feet, or even the device playing this audio, what if it's actually 99.999% empty space?
Okay, I mean, it's a huge question. And, it totally breaks the way we normally think about reality.
Right. And what if ancient religious texts, the ones that have basically shaped human history for thousands of years,
Yeah.
what if they aren't spiritual metaphors at all?
Yeah. What if they're literal, mistranslated logs of extraterrestrial technology?
Exactly. And what if the ultimate battleground for your freedom isn't a political arena or outer space, but the actual fabric of your own perception?
It requires completely stripping away the lens we've been, taught to view the world through.
So welcome to today's deep dive. If you're listening to this right now, buckle up because we are going on an absolute trip today.
We really are.
We're unpacking this dense, highly philosophical, and frankly mind-bending Dutch interview featuring a thinker named Guido Blokland. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this radically alternative framework of, well, human history, reality, and technology.
It's a total paradigm shift. But before we take that leap, I do want to offer a very crucial disclaimer directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, definitely necessary for this one.
Right. So the views presented in the source material traverse really deep into esoteric philosophy, alternative history, and what many classify as modern conspiracy theories.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking ancient extraterrestrial intervention, suppressed tech, fake history, the works.
Exactly. And we want to be absolutely clear here. We are not endorsing or validating these claims as objective historical facts.
No, not at all.
And we are not taking sides on any of the political or historical controversies mentioned in the text. Our job today is strictly analytical.
Right, we're just unpacking the material impartially.
We're going to impartially unpack this fascinating, highly intricate worldview presented in the source, just to understand its internal logic, its philosophical roots, and what the implications are if you actually look at the world through this specific alternative lens.
Perfectly said. We are basically putting on the glasses this text is offering us just to see what the room looks like.
Just trying them on.
Yeah. And let me tell you, the way this source views the room is unlike anything I've read in a long time.
It's very unique.
It actually starts with a massive critique of the exact people you'd think would agree with it. I mean, modern truth seekers and conspiracy researchers.
Right. It opens with a really sharp pivot. Blokland looks at these massive, sprawling debates that dominate alternative forums, specifically using the 1969 Apollo moon landing debate as a prime example.
The classic moon landing debate.
Exactly. You have people spending decades of their lives arguing over whether Stanley Kubrick directed a fake landing.
Right. They point out the missing stars in the background or
how a flag could wave in a vacuum, or analyzing the angles of shadows. And the source argues that getting bogged down in these granular forensic debates is actually a massive trap.
which feels completely counterintuitive.
It really does.
I mean, if you believe you're being lied to by a global authority, wouldn't proving a lie in a photograph be like the ultimate victory? Why does the text call it a trap?
Well, according to the source, arguing over camera angles and crosshairs on a lunar photo keeps you entirely distracted from the actual structure of the control grid.
So it's like a decoy.
Exactly. The text suggests these hyper-focused debates are trivial diversions from much larger, infinitely more important agendas. It's a sleight of hand.
Wow. Okay. So how does the text explain that?
To understand why it's a trap, we have to look deeply into how the source defines the mechanics of information and perception.
Right. The text uses this concept of a bedding, like a riverbed, which I found fascinating. Let's break that logic down because it really changed how I think about the media I consume.
Yeah, the bedding concept is vital here. The text references thinkers like John Brockman and the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein to make this point.
Okay, so what's the core idea there?
Think about it this way. What is the actual objective information of a light bulb? Or the information in a book?
Well, it's just glass and wire, or paper and ink.
Right. Wittgenstein argued that words and objects don't have inherent fixed meanings the way a planet has a fixed physical mass. The meaning is entirely determined by the context it's presented in.
The environment around it.
Exactly. If you're dying of thirst in a desert, and I hold up a glass of sand and say, "Here is water," the word water doesn't magically quench your thirst.
Obviously not.
The reality of the liquid, the container, your biology, that's what gives the scenario meaning. Information is like a river. Without a pre-existing riverbed to channel it, it just dissipates into the mud.
It accomplishes nothing.
Nothing at all.
So if your internal riverbed of perception, like your cognitive framework, is completely different from someone else's, you won't even process the same reality, even if you're looking at the exact same data.
Yes, that's exactly it.
The source highlights this with a truly striking historical example that I just couldn't stop thinking about.
The hygiene film.
Yes. It mentions this educational hygiene film shown to an African tribe in the mid-20th century.
Right.
And these were intelligent, healthy adults with complex social structures. Western aid workers showed them a film designed to instruct them on sanitation, hand washing, that sort of thing.
Standard educational stuff.
Yeah. But after the film ended, when the workers asked the tribe members what they had learned, they hadn't comprehended the lesson at all.
The lesson completely bypassed them.
Completely. When asked what they actually saw on the screen, the only thing the entire group registered seeing was a chicken.
Just a chicken.
A chicken that briefly wandered across the bottom of the frame for, like, a few seconds.
That's incredible.
Why? Because out of all the rapidly changing urban imagery, the sinks, the running water, the soap, the chicken was the only point of reference that mapped onto their daily lived experience.
It fit their riverbed.
Exactly. It was the only visual data that fit into their pre-existing perceptual riverbed. Everything else was just meaningless noise to them.
That example perfectly illustrates the source's core thesis on human conditioning. We walk around thinking of ourselves as completely objective observers of reality.
Like we're just cameras recording what's there.
Right, but the text argues our perceptual framework is rigidly, intentionally conditioned from birth.
Yeah, the text notes something wild about babies, actually. It says they reportedly have almost hallucinatory perceptions.
Yeah, the source claims babies see geometric shapes, shifting fields of color and energy, but their brains are quickly trained out of it.
By who?
By our parents, our schools, our culture. We are taught exactly what to see and, crucially, what not to see.
Society builds the riverbed.
Exactly. It confirms what is acceptable reality and filters out the rest as noise. So the ultimate point here is, if we are fundamentally conditioned to only look for the chicken, we might be entirely blind to massive, systemic realities playing out right in front of our faces.
Wow. Okay, I see the logic. Arguing over the moon landing while missing the bigger cosmic agenda is like arguing over the paint color of a house while the foundation is actively sinking into a sinkhole.
That's a great analogy.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
Isn't it just human nature to gravitate toward tangible mysteries? Like a photograph with a weird shadow is a puzzle you can supposedly solve.
It's manageable.
Right.
Oh.
But grappling with an abstract, invisible, millennia-old control grid? I mean, that's an existential threat. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Don't we focus on the trivial because the profound is just too psychologically overwhelming?
That is a very fair assessment, and honestly, the text actually acknowledges that.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, diving into the profound implications of this worldview requires immense psychological resilience. It's a Herculean task, as the source calls it.
Stripping away your entire sensory and cultural conditioning.
Exactly. It requires admitting that what you feel as solid reality might be a constructed illusion. And as you pointed out, if people are busy arguing over shadows on the moon, what is the real history they're being blinded to?
Well, this is where the deep dive takes a massive
A
turn.
huge term.
If we are supposedly being distracted by modern debates, what is the agenda we are missing? According to the source, the answer lies in a radical reinterpretation of ancient history.
Yes. The text essentially posits that mainstream history, the accepted narrative that humans gradually evolved from hunter-gatherers and then suddenly, almost overnight, blossomed into complex civilizations, is, in the source's words, a joke.
A joke. Just casually calling the foundation of archaeology a joke.
Yeah. Mainstream paleontology proposes this gradual evolution over hundreds of thousands of years, punctuated by sudden, massive leaps in societal complexity around 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia.
Sumeria, right.
Yeah.
With the writing, agriculture, plumbing, banking, all of it.
Right, but this source, which is heavily influenced by alternative readings of antiquity, argues that this sudden leap wasn't the result of human ingenuity or natural progression.
What was it then?
It was the result of direct physical intervention.
Okay, here we go.
The text suggests that ancient religious texts, specifically the Old Testament and the Sumerian cuneiform clay tablets, aren't books of divine magic or spiritual allegories.
That are literal.
They argue they are literal observational accounts of advanced, highly destructive extraterrestrial technology.
Okay, let's dig into the evidence the text uses to support this, because the examples it gives are incredibly intense. Let's look at the Old Testament God, Yahweh. Mainstream Abrahamic religion views Yahweh as a divine, omnipotent, spiritual creator, right? But this text views the entity known as Yahweh as a tyrannical, technologically advanced physical being.
Or perhaps a title for a group of beings, operating essentially as an extraterrestrial colonizer.
It's wild. How does the text even get there?
Well, the source achieves this by taking specific scenes from biblical texts and viewing them strictly through an engineering and military lens.
Okay.
For instance, it examines the famous descent of Yahweh onto Mount Sinai, or Mount Hermon.
Oh, yeah, where Moses goes up.
Right. In the traditional narrative, this is a moment of ultimate divine holiness. But look at the physical descriptions the text highlights.
Thick smoke, roaring fire.
Yes, thick smoke, roaring fire, a deafening trumpet-like noise that makes the ground shake.
Yeah.
And Moses is commanded to set up a strict lethal perimeter around the base of the mountain.
The text says anyone who touches the mountain, man or beast, will die instantly.
Exactly. The traditional reading is that the sheer spiritual purity of God would destroy a sinful mortal.
Right, you can't look at the face of God and live.
But the source interprets this entirely differently. It reads this not as divine holiness, but as a literal description of a heavy thrust rocket landing.
Oh, wow, so the smoke and fire.
The smoke and fire are chemical exhaust. The deafening noise is the roar of the engines.
And what about that lethal boundary where people die if they touch it?
The text argues that it was a localized force field, like an electric fence or microwave perimeter set up to protect the local primitive population from lethal radiation poisoning and the physical dangers of the landing craft's exhaust.
Wait, so when the text says do not touch the mountain, the source isn't reading that as reverence. They are literally reading an engineering manual into a Bronze Age text.
Essentially, yes.
How do they justify that leap? I mean, that's a massive jump.
They justify it by looking at the consistency of the violence and the mechanisms of death described in the texts. It goes further into the books of Leviticus and Numbers.
Okay, give me an example.
The source examines the story of the 250 rebel leaders who question the authority of Moses and Aaron.
What happens to them?
Well, the text says, a quote, "Fire goes out from the Lord," end quote, and instantly consumes all 250 of them, leaving the rest of the camp completely untouched.
Wow. Just targeted incineration.
Exactly. Or consider the sons of Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. They offer unauthorized fire before the Lord and are instantly incinerated.
So they mess with the tech.
That's the implication. The source is arguing, look at the mechanics of this. This isn't a spiritual metaphor about divine judgment.
Right.
This reads like an elite being using highly advanced localized plasma or directed energy weapons to instantly vaporize dissenters and maintain absolute terror-based control over a captive, primitive population.
It paints a terrifying picture.
Yeah.
And the linguistic connections the source draws really bolster this argument, too.
They do.
Because if this was just a localized phenomenon in the Middle East, you could maybe dismiss it. But the text claims that the names Moses and Yahweh aren't even originally Hebrew.
Right. This is where it gets into the Sumerian connections.
Yeah, it cites a 1918 work by a German Assyriologist named Friedrich Delitzsch. He claimed to have found the root name Yahweh inscribed on much older Sumerian cuneiform tablets.
Tablets that predate the Hebrew texts by thousands of years.
Thousands. And the source points out that the core pillars of Genesis, like the creation of man from clay, the great flood wiping out humanity, are almost direct copies of older Sumerian epics.
Like the Atrahasis or the Enuma Elish.
Exactly.
And this is a crucial bridge in the source's logic, because in those older Sumerian texts, they don't talk about a singular spiritual god.
No, they don't.
They talk about a pantheon of physical beings called the Anunnaki.
Which roughly translates to those who came from heaven to earth.
Correct. The source argues that these Anunnaki were not mythological gods representing the sun or the harvest. They were a physical, technologically superior elite race that utilized Earth.
Like a colony.
Yeah, the text implies they used it perhaps as a mining colony for resources, or even a refugee camp. And they brought with them devastating weapons of mass destruction.
The source brings up Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Yes. It attributes the destruction of ancient cities like Sodom and Gomorrah in the Middle East, or Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley of ancient India, to ancient nuclear or plasma weapons.
Deployed during civil wars among these Anunnaki factions. The Mohenjo-Daro example is chilling, frankly.
It really is.
The text points out that when early 20th century archaeologists excavated the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, they didn't find evidence of a slow decline or a conventional siege.
No, they didn't.
They found skeletons lying flat in the streets, some holding hands, completely unburied, like they were caught in a sudden, instantaneous blast.
Very much like the victims of Pompeii, except there is no volcano anywhere near Mohenjo-Daro.
Exactly. Furthermore, the text claims that the stones of the city show evidence of vitrification.
Which is where stone is heated to such an extreme temperature that it literally melts into glass.
Right. And some alternative researchers claim these sites still exhibit radioactive hotspots today.
The source connects this physical evidence directly back to texts like the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata.
What does that describe?
It vividly describes weapons with, quote, the power of the universe, or the brilliance of 1,000 suns.
That sounds suspiciously like Oppenheimer.
Well, exactly. The text described the aftermath of these weapons, causing hair and nails to fall out, food to become poisoned, and birds to turn white.
Which, to modern ears, sounds like a textbook description of acute radiation sickness.
It really does.
It is a totally gripping framework. I mean, it turns history into a sci-fi thriller. But I have to ask the skeptic's question here.
Of course.
How do we responsibly differentiate between an ancient pre-scientific culture using terrifying poetic metaphors to describe natural disasters like a freak meteor strike, or an incredibly violent volcanic eruption, and an actual literal description of an extraterrestrial plasma weapon?
It's a very thin line.
Right. If you are a Bronze Age farmer and you see a meteor explode in the atmosphere, you're going to call it a weapon of the gods because that's the only vocabulary you have.
That is the perpetual challenge of archaeoastronomy and alternative history. Are we simply projecting our own modern nuclear age anxieties backward onto the past?
Right.
The source, however, insists that the specificity of the details, the vitrified stone, the precise descriptions of radiation sickness, which wouldn't result from a standard meteor, point toward a technological reality, not just poetry.
They argue the details are too specific to be metaphors.
Exactly. The text argues that brushing this off as mythology is exactly the kind of perceptual filtering we discussed earlier.
Looking for the chicken again.
Yes. But the source doesn't stop at destroyed cities. If these ancient beings were manipulating humanity with advanced technology, the text argues that the manipulation went much, much deeper than architecture or politics.
Oh yeah, it goes all the way down to our biology, our very DNA. Which brings us to one of the most mind-bending parts of this deep dive.
The chromosome 2.
Yes. Chromosome 2 and the concept of humanity as a downgraded species.
Yeah.
We are shifting gears from ancient archaeology to modern genetics. The source zeroes in specifically on human chromosome 2.
Let's break down the biology here. Humans have 46 chromosomes arranged in 23 pairs.
Okay.
However, all of our closest genetic relatives in the animal kingdom, the great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, they all have 48 chromosomes, or 24 pairs.
So we're missing a pair.
Well, mainstream evolutionary biology explains this discrepancy through a natural, albeit rare, evolutionary event. Millions of years ago, two separate ancestral ape chromosomes supposedly fused together end-to-end to create the single large human chromosome 2.
And the physical evidence for this fusion is that right in the middle of human chromosome 2, scientists have found telomeres.
Yes, the telomeres.
And just to clarify for everyone, telomeres are essentially the protective caps at the end of a DNA strand, right? Like the little plastic aglets at the end of your shoelaces that keep them from unraveling.
That's a perfect way to describe them.
By definition, they belong at the ends of the chromosome. But in human chromosome 2, you have these end caps sitting right smack in the middle of the genetic sequence.
Exactly. Now, mainstream genetics views this fusion as a fascinating natural mutation that played a key role in differentiating our species from other primates.
Just a lucky accident of evolution.
Right. The source material, however, views this exact same biological data as the ultimate smoking gun of deliberate genetic tampering.
They think it was intentional.
The text argues that the presence of these telomeres locked in the middle of the chromosome is irrefutable evidence of a literal cut-and-paste job by an advanced intelligence.
Wow.
It argues that the Anunnaki took early hominids, perhaps Homo erectus or Neanderthals, and genetically engineered them.
But here's where this specific source radically diverges from a lot of other ancient alien theories.
It does take a very dark turn here.
Usually when people talk about extraterrestrials messing with human DNA, they frame it as an upgrade. You know, this story usually goes, we were primitive apes, And the aliens graciously gave us the spark of intelligence.
The genetic leap required to build civilizations.
Right, to write poetry, ponder the stars, all of that. But this text argues the exact opposite. It argues that the genetic intervention was a massive, intentional downgrade.
This is a profound philosophical pivot in the text. It really challenges how we view our place on Earth. The source asks us to objectively look at the human species in comparison to the rest of the natural world.
Okay, what does it point out?
Well, every other animal on this planet exists in perfect synergetic harmony with its habitat. A bird doesn't need to invent thermal clothing to survive the winter. Its biology is perfectly adapted.
A bear doesn't need agriculture.
Exactly. But humans. The text argues we are fundamentally biologically maladapted to our own planet.
I mean, we do require clothing and shelter so we don't freeze to death.
We struggle immensely to secure and digest food compared to wild animals. We are physically weak, prone to a massive array of genetic diseases, and we are constantly relying on external technological crutches just to survive our environment.
It's true. We are arguably the only species that feels like an alien on its own planet. We don't fit seamlessly into any ecosystem. We have to forcefully alter the ecosystem to accommodate us.
And the source views this maladaptation not as a sign of our unique intellectual superiority, but as a direct symptom of our engineered limitation.
So we were made to be weak.
The text suggests that the Anunnaki didn't want to create intellectual peers. They wanted to create a docile, limited biological workforce.
Slaves, essentially.
They wanted slaves to mine resources, build monuments, and serve the elite. According to this theory, our DNA was intentionally bottlenecked.
How so?
The source points to the fact that humans supposedly only consciously utilize a small fraction of our cognitive potential, and that a vast majority of our DNA was long labeled by mainstream science as junk DNA or non-protein coding DNA.
Oh, right. The junk DNA. The text sees this junk DNA not as evolutionary leftovers, but as deactivated genetic code, right? It's dormant potential.
Precisely. It's deactivated circuitry.
So according to this theory, instead of being given a software update that made us smarter, we were given a software patch that intentionally throttled our processing speed and locked us out of the admin settings.
That is a perfect analogy. We were engineered to be just smart enough to take complex orders, operate machinery, and build societies.
But dumb enough and deeply fearful enough not to question the masters holding the reins.
Exactly. And the source argues that this deeply ingrained subconscious feeling that humanity is somehow broken, flawed, or separated from nature.
Like original sin.
Yes, a feeling echoed globally in religious concepts like original sin or the fall from Eden. The text argues this stems directly from this ancient physical genetic downgrade. We feel biologically and spiritually broken because we were broken.
We were designed with built-in limitations. That is incredibly bleak.
It is.
But if our biology was deliberately locked down thousands of years ago to make us docile workers, then what happens when modern science finally reaches the point where we can tinker with that very same biology? Does the control grid just evaporate, or does it evolve?
That is exactly the question the source raises next, and it leads us directly into the modern era.
Things are about to get very current.
Very. The source forcefully argues that this ancient agenda of elite control did not end when the Anunnaki allegedly left or faded into myth.
So it's still happening.
The control grid is continuing right now, today, through the mechanisms of modern technology. The text specifically targets the modern movement of transhumanism.
It calls out some pretty big names, doesn't it?
It does. It specifically calls out powerful figures like Elon Musk, Ray Kurzweil, and Bill Gates.
Transhumanism, for those who might not be familiar, is this philosophical and scientific movement that advocates for fundamentally transforming the human condition.
By developing sophisticated technologies.
Right. To greatly enhance human intellect and physiology. We are talking about brain-computer interfaces, biological augmentations, gene editing.
And eventually, merging human consciousness with artificial intelligence.
On the surface, transhumanism sounds like the ultimate liberation. Curing disease, ending aging, expanding the mind. But the source critiques this movement heavily. It argues that modern transhumanism is actually rooted in the exact same ancient engineered lie. The belief that the biological human body is an inherent failure.
It perpetuates the idea that we are weak, flawed vessels that require external technological salvation to be whole.
The source points out the incredibly dark irony here. These modern tech billionaires claim they want to save us and upgrade us with technology, but the text argues they are essentially building the ultimate inescapable prison.
It specifically mentions Elon Musk's Neuralink.
Oh, yeah.
Musk has talked about this concept of open skull acupuncture to implant microscopic threads into the brain, eventually allowing people to merge with AI so we aren't left behind as a species.
But the text sees this not as human evolution, but as the final closing of the control grid's door.
Yes, if the ancient gods locked our physical DNA, the modern elite are trying to lock our very consciousness into a centralized digital grid.
Where our thoughts and emotions can be monitored and influenced in real time. That is terrifying.
And to understand how this modern control grid maintains its power, we have to look at the source's claims regarding suppressed technology.
This is a fascinating pivot.
The text alleges a massive, century-long global cover-up of highly advanced physics, specifically the suppression of free energy and anti-gravity technology.
This is a huge pillar of alternative research.
Mhm.
The idea that we've had the cure for our energy crisis for decades.
Exactly. The text references historical rumors and groups like the Vril Society in pre-WWIR Germany. It discusses figures like the Austrian forester and inventor Victor Schauberger.
What did he supposedly do?
Schauberger allegedly designed propulsion disks that utilized counter-rotating magnetic fields and vortex dynamics.
Okay, that sounds very sci-fi. How does that work?
The theory here is that gravity isn't just a static property of mass, it's an electromagnetic phenomenon.
Wow.
By creating specific, highly energized counter-rotating magnetic fields, you can allegedly create a localized vacuum.
Effectively negating gravity.
Yes, allowing for silent, inertialess flight. The text claims this technology was successfully developed, but instantly classified and hidden by the military-industrial complex.
Of course. The source also brings up the mysterious death of Rudolf Diesel, the inventor of the diesel engine, to illustrate how brutally the energy monopoly protects itself.
That's a very suspicious case.
Diesel vanished from his steamship in the English Channel in 1913 under highly suspicious circumstances.
That's a con.
Yeah. The text implies he was eliminated by agents of the burgeoning fossil fuel monopolies, like the Rockefeller oil empire.
Why would they target him?
Because Diesel had originally designed his engine to run on simple organic vegetable oils, like peanut oil or hemp oil.
The implication there is profound. If every farmer in the world can grow their own fuel to power their machinery, you have decentralized power.
You cannot control a population that is energy independent.
Exactly. The source argues that the global elite realized that free or easily accessible energy would destroy their monopoly on power, which is based entirely on the illusion of scarcity.
Okay, wait, let me play this out. If the text is saying that humanity, or at least a breakaway faction of the military and the elite, has possessed the capability for free, clean energy and anti-gravity travel for nearly a century,
Yeah.
then what on earth is going on with NASA, SpaceX, and the modern space race?
Well, according to the source, the entire modern space program is a deliberate, highly orchestrated, incredibly expensive theatrical distraction.
A distraction.
The text refers to the use of massive rockets burning millions of gallons of highly explosive liquid fossil fuels just to escape Earth's orbit as a mastodon technology.
Mastodon technology.
It's a primitive, incredibly inefficient, and destructive method.
It's like using a steam engine to power a supercomputer.
Precisely. If anti-gravity tech exists, why put astronauts on top of controlled chemical explosions?
Right, doesn't make sense.
The source argues it is done purely to maintain the illusion, to keep humanity believing that we are primitive, that we are barely clinging to the edge of the cosmos, and that space travel is exceedingly rare, dangerous, and requires immense centralized resources.
So it's a multi-billion-dollar performance.
Designed to hide the fact that a breakaway civilization, utilizing suppressed physics, already operates freely within and beyond our atmosphere.
It's the ultimate bait and switch. We are being sold primitive, destructive technology under the guise of human progress, while the real, liberating technology is kept hidden in black projects to maintain absolute power.
That's exactly the argument.
And the text suggests this deception is building toward a terrifying climax. It brings up something called Project Blue Beam.
Yes, Project Blue Beam is a very prominent, long-standing theory within these alternative circles. It was most famously publicized by a Canadian investigative journalist named Serge Monast in the mid-1990s.
What happened to him?
Well, the text significantly notes that Monast died suddenly of a heart attack under very suspicious circumstances shortly after publishing his detailed claims, despite having no prior history of heart disease.
Wow, okay, what exactly did he claim? Because the mechanics of this theory are wild.
The theory posits that the global elite, having exhausted traditional means of geopolitical control like localized wars or financial crises, will initiate a massive global psychological operation.
Okay.
They will use highly advanced classified holographic projection technology, supposedly beaming powerful lasers and imagery directly onto the sodium layer of the Earth's atmosphere to simulate a massive, terrifying, and globally visible extraterrestrial invasion.
A fake alien invasion.
Yes.
And the text links this directly to an alleged deathbed confession by Werner von Braun, right?
It does.
Von Braun was the brilliant Nazi rocket scientist who was secretly brought to the U.S. under Operation Paperclip. He basically became the chief architect of the Apollo program at NASA.
A very connected figure.
Extremely. And according to an associate of his named Carol Rosen, von Braun warned her in the 1970s that the military-industrial complex had a sequence of fabricated enemies to justify endless weapons spending and control.
First it would be the Cold War, then rogue nations, then global terrorism.
Then asteroids. But the final card, the ultimate trump card they would play to secure total, unquestioned global control, would be a fabricated alien threat.
The psychological logic behind this is brutal, but undeniably effective.
If humanity is terrified of an overwhelmingly powerful, hostile, alien force appearing in the sky, all national borders, religious differences, and political squabbles will evaporate overnight.
The population will instantly surrender all remaining civil liberties and sovereignty, begging for a single, authoritarian, one-world government or military coalition to protect them.
And the text suggests that the current slow-drip disclosure of UFO videos by the military in recent years isn't a sudden burst of transparency, is it?
No, it argues it's the early psychological prep work. It is conditioning the public to accept the reality of an external threat, paving the way for this ultimate false flag operation.
Furthermore, the source claims that this modern control grid isn't just about holograms in the sky. It extends directly into our bloodstreams.
It goes right to the micro level.
It alleges that modern medical interventions, specifically global vaccination programs, along with the rollout of 6G telecommunication networks, are part of a unified physical warfare grid.
It talks about nanobots and self-assembling graphene oxide.
Purportedly found in injections, right? Arguing that they are designed to turn the human body into a biological walking antenna.
The goal is to fully integrate every human being into a monitored, digital control system where non-compliance literally means being switched off from the grid.
Oh. Okay, so let's take a breath and look at the picture the text has painted so far. We have an ancient, genetically engineered biological downgrade.
Right.
We have a century of suppressed, world-changing physics. We have a fake space race designed to hide a breakaway civilization. And we are allegedly hurtling toward a fabricated holographic alien invasion designed to terrify us into submitting to an AI-driven, transhumanist digital enslavement.
It's a lot to take in.
I mean, if the physical world is this heavily manipulated, controlled, and weaponized by forces infinitely more powerful than the average citizen, how does anyone possibly escape? It feels completely suffocating.
It does feel suffocating if you try to solve it on the level it's presented, but this is exactly where the source material takes a massive, totally unexpected philosophical turn.
Okay, where does it go?
The answer, according to Widow Glauclin's framework, isn't to build a bunker or to fight the control grid with physical weapons or to elect new politicians.
Then what is it?
The answer is a radical, fundamental shift in how we understand the nature of reality itself.
This brings us to the most abstract, yet arguably the most important part of the deep dive, the quantum illusion and the holographic universe.
Yes.
The source pivots sharply away from political conspiracy, ancient aliens, and suppressed tech, moving straight into the realm of quantum mechanics and ancient Eastern mysticism.
It argues that the fundamental trap we are caught in isn't biological or political. The trap is the materialist worldview.
The materialist worldview. That's the deeply ingrained, universally accepted belief that only what you can touch, see, and physically measure is truly real, right?
Exactly. It is the belief that matter is the foundational building block of the universe, and that consciousness is just a fortuitous, accidental byproduct of complex matter.
Like chemical and electrical reactions in the brain.
Right. The source argues that this belief system is the ultimate prison, and it uses the science of the atom to dismantle it.
Yes. Let's look at the scale of the atom, because the text gives a mind-blowing visualization to prove just how empty the material world actually is.
It really puts things in perspective.
Most of us picture an atom like a solar system, a solid nucleus in the middle with solid electrons spinning around it like planets. but the scale is completely
That's so
wrong.
wrong.
The text asks us to imagine an atom. Now blow that atom up to the size of the entire Earth. At that planetary scale, the actual solid particles, the protons and neutrons in the nucleus, would only be the size of small berries sitting in the center.
The sheer volume of emptiness is staggering.
Let's use the other example the text provides, which I think is even more visceral. If you take a single atom and expand it to the size of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, this massive, cavernous, echoing cathedral,
Right.
the nucleus of that atom would be the size of a single grain of salt sitting in the middle of the marble floor. The electrons would be microscopic dust motes swirling around the dome. Everything else, the entirety of that cathedral, is empty space.
The scientific conclusion, which the source embraces fully, is that matter is 99.9999% empty space.
So almost everything is nothing.
The chair you are sitting on, your own physical body, the screen you're looking at, it is almost entirely nothingness. It's just interacting fields of energy.
Wow.
The source contrasts the Western logical view of the universe with the Eastern mystical view to highlight how poorly our culture grasps this reality.
Right. The text talks about Democritus,
Yeah.
the ancient Greek philosopher who first conceptualized the idea of the atom. Democritus thought of reality basically like Lego blocks.
Tiny, indivisible, solid puzzle pieces that snap together to build everything from a rock to a human.
Right, it's logical, it's solid, it feels safe. But then the text contrasts that Lego block view with an ancient Eastern story from the Upanishads.
The story of Svidiketu.
Yes, it's the story of a boy named Svidiketu. His father, a sage, asks him to cut open a fruit from a banyan tree. Then he asks him to take a tiny seed from that fruit and split the seed open.
And what does he find?
The father asks, "What do you see inside the seed?" Svidiketu replies, "Nothing." And his father says that invisible nothingness is the essence of the whole tree, that nothingness is what you are, that is everything.
This isn't just poetry. It's a crucial philosophical distinction that modern physics is only now catching up to.
Because we spent so long looking for the Lego block.
Exactly. Western science spent centuries and billions of dollars in particle accelerators looking for the ultimate solid building block, the God particle. But quantum physics, as the text notes by referencing scientists like Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr, arrived at a deeply unsettling conclusion.
Which is,
At the most fundamental, subatomic level, there are no solid blocks. Particles behave as probability waves. They have no definite mass or physical location until they are observed or interact with a measuring device.
the text introduces this incredible concept of the plenum. Could you explain the plenum? Because it changes how we view the empty space in the cathedral.
Gladly. In the materialist view, the void is just empty, dead space where nothing exists. But the concept of the plenum suggests that this void isn't empty at all.
Okay, so what is it then?
It is absolute fullness. It is a field of infinite potential, an active, vibrating plasma vortex.
Wait, a vortex? So the universe isn't a collection of physical objects bumping into each other in dead space. It's a projection.
Precisely. The source argues that the entire physical universe is essentially a holographic projection of consciousness.
But we're taught the brain makes consciousness.
We are trained from birth to believe that consciousness is a byproduct of our physical brains. If the brain dies, the consciousness dies, because the brain created it. The text posits the exact reverse. The physical brain, the body, and the entire material universe are byproducts of a singular, undivided, infinite field of consciousness.
So the brain is just a receiver.
It acts as an antenna, tuning into a specific frequency of that universal consciousness.
Okay, I have to push back here because this is where the rubber meets the road for most people.
Sure, go ahead.
This all sounds beautiful. It sounds like a lovely poem or a great sci-fi movie. But if the world is a quantum illusion, a holographic projection of empty space and probability waves, why does it hurt so much when I stub my toe on the coffee table?
Ah, the stub toe problem.
Yeah, the source itself points out this massive contradiction. How do we reconcile this deep, philosophical quantum emptiness with our visceral daily experience of a highly solid, often painful world?
It is the ultimate question of the human experience. The source addresses this by explaining that our localized consciousness, your specific perspective, acting as an avatar in this physical simulation, is deeply programmed by its biology to decode specific energetic frequencies as physical sensations.
So when I hit the table,
When your foot hits the table, there is no solid matter touching solid matter. Instead, the electromagnetic fields of the atoms in your foot are violently repelling the electromagnetic fields of the atoms in the table.
Like pushing two wrong ends of a magnet together.
Exactly. That intense electromagnetic repulsion generates an electrical signal that travels up your nervous system to your brain.
And the brain translates it.
Your localized consciousness then instantly decodes that signal and translates it into the experience of pain in solid wood. The table isn't solid and your toe isn't solid, but the interaction of their energetic fields is decoded by your perception software as a solid, painful collision.
The illusion is perfectly, flawlessly immersive.
It has to be.
And the text argues that the elite control system, whether it's ancient Anunnaki or modern transhumanists, relies entirely on keeping us permanently locked in this survival-based material decoding process.
They want us to believe that the pain, the fear, the physical limitations, and the scarcity are the absolute ultimate reality.
Why? Because if we believe that this physical body is all we are, we can be endlessly controlled by threats to our physical survival.
If you fear death, you can be made to do anything.
Which perfectly sets up the climax of this entire philosophy. We've mapped the prison, we've identified the illusion, so what happens next?
The source claims we are currently existing at the end of a massive cycle of time. It uses the term end times, but it is vital to understand it is not using that term in the traditional Hollywood apocalyptic sense.
Right. It's not about fire and brimstone destroying the earth and punishing the wicked. The text describes it more like the completion of an energy cycle.
Like a play ending.
Yeah. The metaphor it uses is the closing of a theater show at the end of a long run. The performance has run its course, the plot has been resolved, the actors are taking their bows, and the stage is about to be completely reset for a new play.
The source points out that many ancient cultures and calendars, like the Mayan calendar or the Vedic yugas, didn't view time the way we do in the West.
We view time as a straight line, right? An arrow heading from the past towards infinite future progress.
But ancient cultures viewed time as cyclical, fractal, and repeating. We're supposedly reaching the crescendo of a massive macrocycle that has perhaps lasted hundreds of thousands of years.
A cycle specifically defined by this heavy technological materialist illusion.
Yes.
And the way out of this cycle, the way off the stage, is what the text calls the true Great Awakening. And this is fascinating because the text completely redefines what it means to be awake.
It does.
In modern internet culture, being awake usually means you've successfully decoded the latest political conspiracy. You know who actually funds which global health organization, or you believe you've proven the moon landing was fake.
But the source argues that doing all of that is still just playing in the sandbox of the illusion.
Exactly. Figuring out the mechanical political details of the control grid is still fundamentally focusing your energy and attention on the grid itself. You are still validating its reality.
The true Great Awakening, according to this text, is not an external political victory. It is the profound internal process of individuation or self-realization.
Okay, what does that actually mean?
It is the experiential realization that your individual ego, your name, your personal history, your anxieties, your career, your physical body, is just a localized, temporary perspective of a universal, singular consciousness.
To illustrate this state of realization, the text provides this absolutely stunning quote from the renowned 20th century spiritual teacher Nisargadatta Maharaj.
Oh, it's a beautiful quote.
He said, "When I look inside and see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I look outside and see that I am everything, that is love. And between these two, my life turns."
It's a profound, elegant synthesis of everything the text is trying to convey. When he says, "I am nothing," it perfectly aligns with that quantum emptiness we discussed.
The void of the atom.
The realization that you are not your temporary physical body, nor are you the neurotic ego generated by the brain. That realization that detachment is wisdom.
But when he says, "I am everything,"
It is the realization of the plenum. It is the understanding that the singular infinite consciousness experiencing reality through your specific set of eyes is the exact same consciousness experiencing reality through every other human, animal, and star in the universe.
recognizing yourself in the other is the ultimate definition of love.
Yes.
If you truly internalize this, if you don't just intellectually understand it as a neat concept, but viscerally experience it as truth, the text argues that the elite's power over you completely evaporates in an instant.
Because their entire control grid requires your voluntary participation, a parasite cannot survive without a host.
It needs us to believe in it.
The system requires your fear, your attention, your anger, and your energetic compliance to function. If you realize you are infinite, unbroken consciousness temporarily driving a biological vehicle, the paralyzing fear of physical death vanishes.
The desire to fight in their engineered geopolitical wars vanishes. The urge to consume endlessly to fill a spiritual void vanishes.
You simply stop feeding your energy into their materialist simulation.
And that is the ultimate liberation presented in this source material. The system isn't broken by fighting it on its own terms, with its own weapons, or within its own rigged political arenas.
Fighting the hologram just makes the hologram stronger because it demands your focus.
The system is broken by transcending its foundational premise entirely. By recognizing the physical world as a temporary participatory dream, the individual withdraws the consent that sustains the nightmare.
It is an incredibly comprehensive, dizzyingly complex, and undeniably controversial architecture of reality, but it demands that we question our most basic assumptions about who we are and what we're doing here.
Wow. Okay, let's take a moment and recap this incredible journey we've just been on, because we have covered immense ground today.
You really have.
We started by looking at why arguing over trivial conspiracy details like shadows on a lunar photograph is actually a perceptual trap that blinds us to a much larger systemic agenda.
The riverbed of perception?
Right. Then we explore the source's radical, controversial claim that ancient religious texts are not spiritual metaphors, but literal, observable descriptions of highly advanced, violently deployed extraterrestrial technology.
We then looked at the biological implications of that, examining the theory that the anomalies of human chromosome 2 are physical evidence of an ancient genetic downgrade.
Intentionally designing humanity as a limited, docile workforce, an agenda that the text claims is being explicitly continued today by modern transhumanists pushing for digital integration.
While simultaneously hiding liberating technologies like free energy and anti-gravity beneath the theatrical distraction of modern chemical rocketry and the looming threat of a false flag alien invasion.
But finally, we dug beneath all the conspiracies in the history, diving straight down into the quantum emptiness of the atom itself.
We arrived at the idea that the entire material universe is a holographic projection of consciousness.
And that the only true, lasting escape from any control grid is the liberation of human consciousness through profound self-realization.
It leaves us with a final, highly provocative thought to mull over.
What's that?
The source heavily argues that this massive, millennia-old control grid, regardless of whether it's run by ancient Anunnaki or modern billionaires, relies entirely on our voluntary participation. It needs our attention, our fear, and our compliance to maintain its structure.
Right.
But think deeply about the nature of a hologram, which the text explicitly compares our universe to. In a true hologram, every single piece, no matter how small you cut it, contains the complete image of the whole.
The whole picture is in every fraction.
Therefore, if you change the frequency of even the smallest fraction of the image, the entire macroscopic picture must necessarily shift.
Oh, well.
If this reality truly is a participatory holographic universe, as the text suggests, then refusing to play the game based on fear doesn't just free you individually. It might fundamentally rewrite the core code of the reality for everyone else.
What happens to the grand, terrifying illusion when the audience simply decides to look away? That is a question that will keep you staring at the ceiling tonight. Because if the audience collectively looks away, maybe the projector just powers down.
Exactly.
We started this deep dive talking about the trap of seeking simple answers. The desire to find a gotcha mistake in a photograph to explain the world's problems. But maybe the muddy, infinitely complex waters of our reality aren't something to be fixed with a simple answer.
Maybe the realization that the photograph, the camera, and the observer are all just a trick of the universal light is the only diagnosis that actually matters.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, keep an open mind and keep questioning the fundamental nature of your reality.